140 Sam is responding.
Before coming on to the department, actually, I remember sitting out just side of the Harbor Patrol's office as an older teenager and seeing the Harbor Patrol boats and telling my family that's something I'd like to do. And after doing a lengthy patrol career, this is the job that I pursued and luckily landed. Love the job, I love the ongoing training, and I love serving the community in the way that we do.
I grew up in the family, the LA County Sheriff's Department family. My dad was on the department for 32 years, retired in 2002. So it's one of those professions that I always knew eventually I would get into. I didn't come on the job until I was 34, so I did a lot of things prior to, but always knew I'd end up here.
Typical day usually starts with getting the boat ready for service that morning, going over all of our equipment.
Engines, all of our electronics, our weapons, attending our briefing, and then we try to spend most of our time out on the water.
Run a security sweep of some of the high-value targets that we have in our jurisdiction that we patrol.
Doing everything from safety inspections, any rescue calls, doing boat stops for any violations or safety hazards we see. A lot of people we see come down here and get in these boats and have no idea how to operate them. They have no idea what the effects of wind and current and conditions are. And without taking some classing and having some instruction, the hard way to learn is normally to run your boat aground or get somebody hurt. Plus handling any normal law enforcement call that any other station would get that occurs on the water. Generally speaking, it's definitely slower pace than it is in a radio car on the streets.
Our boats, we actually field 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's usually a two-man crew. So the pace is a little bit different than the normal patrol station.
It has a whole different level of expertise required, because when you stop a car on the streets and you get out of your radio car, you know it's going to be there when you come back. When you stop a boat, unless you tie it up, it's not going to be there. So things are always moving and always happening. You have the whole danger of the water. So it's a whole nother base of knowledge that you have to have. But as far as the daily routine, the people generally are much friendlier than what you contact and deal with on the streets.
We heard a call go out over dispatch 12 of a medical emergency at a restaurant in our jurisdiction.
The original call was that she had fallen and hit her head and was unconscious. Because of where we were just coming back into the entrance, we were able to give a shorter ETA than landside units.
So we ended up acknowledging the call with a short arrival time of 1 to 2 minutes.
I was operating the boat at the time, so we came into the dock area. I was able to drop my partner off. He had all of the EMT equipment with him. He responded up to the restaurant. I secured our boat to the dock and then followed him up.
Ran into the restaurant, and I was directed by the manager to the victim who was down, and it looked like CPR was in progress, but they weren't doing a very good job in getting the compressions in and the breaths. So I told them exactly how to administer the CPR, and at that point, while they were conducting that, my partner came in.
When I got there, there was several civilians that were attempting to administer CPR. It did not appear as though they were administering it. They were doing it right, but they were not doing it aggressively enough. So I stepped in, took over the CPR.
Began an aggressive CPR, and during which time I applied the defibrillator pads.
It advised of a shock, so he administered the shock. I continued my CPR. It advised of another shock, so we administered a second shock. I continued the CPR. Shortly after that is when our other EMS units started to arrive, the ambulance service and the paramedics started to arrive. We continued to administer aid the whole time. We got her on the backboard, onto the gurney, and then loaded her into the ambulance. And that's when we stepped back and let them take over when they transported her. You know, it's something that we train for, but you know the odds are definitely against you when when you get those calls where somebody's in full arrest, you know, the chances are very, very slim, especially when it's not witnessed by you. You don't know how long, you know, she's been down before they called and before you got there.
We were later contacted by the emergency room cardiologist, who said that the woman in her condition at the time we had arrived probably had less than a 5% chance of survival, and that aggressive CPR and the defibrillator was a result of, you know, her living. I think that most of the time any call that you go on is a little bit emotionally draining, because you have a victim, obviously, that's involved that you're treating, and subsequently you will have relatives or friends responding on scene, and you see how it affects them. And so it kind of always takes an emotional toll, seeing how the family reacts. And you think, again, you know, if this was your relative here, how would you be feeling? It's not until later that you probably start absorbing it and thinking of how you could have done things differently, more efficiently, or how it affects you in the sense if that was your family member or relative that was on the floor. So you're always striving to give your best and always evaluate your performance.